Today I'll be discussing how the practice context impacts on the OT process, and I decided to focus on this question because I think it's important to recognise how the aspects of the physical, the social, the cultural and institutional factors affect how well we can implement OT programs and how well they can be carried out. So for Frankie, the practice context it occurred at the orphanage, and this was in a room with myself, a translator and Frankie, and sessions occurred for about an hour per week. There were barriers and enablers to the practice context. So enablers in the sessions were that a translator was available throughout all sessions, and that we also were able to access the room that allowed Frankie to concentrate on activities. Barriers of the practice context were that it was quite hot during the day. Often children would interrupt sessions, and there was a lack of resources available to us. So how did these impact on therapy? For the enablers, having a translator available throughout all sessions allowed us to give him instructions that he would understand, and also give him feedback and advice on how he might be able to do things better. So this is quite useful through activities for gross motor, getting him to jump with 2 feet. Also, the room that the therapy took place in, it allowed for minimal distractions to occur, because Frankie had was easily quite distracted, so it was good to have a room that he wouldn't become distracted from. Barriers of the practice context. So I said before it was quite hot in the room and quite stuffy. Frankie found this hard to participate in gross motor activities, and would also use the excuse of that he was too hot to participate in these activities. Children interrupting the sessions, they would often be Frankie's friends, and he would become distracted from the tasks that he was doing at the time. He would also want to go off with his friends and play with them, and it would be hard for us to get him to return back to the activity that he was doing. The last barrier was the lack of resources, and this was one of the hardest things to overcome. At the site there wasn't many resources available to us, and so therefore we had to bring in equipment from external sites which had limited resources as well. So at the same time this was occurring, there was another session that ran with another child with similar difficulties, and so therefore they were competing for similar types of equipment. So one example would be that we often did an obstacle course to give Frankie enough sensory input to be able to focus on activities, which used a scooter board and a tunnel. However, the scooter board and tunnel needed to be used at the same time at the start of the session in another room, and so therefore we had to modify Frankie's session plan a bit in order to overcome this limited resources. So what this meant for Frankie's therapy and overall occupational performance was that I compiled all the information together, and it was very beneficial to have the translator and the space available for him to focus. The translator gave him enough information so he understood what he needed to be done, but the limitation in the resources, the heat and the interruptions, often caused Frankie to not perform activities to the best of his abilities. So these barriers enablers work together to influence the quality of service being offered to him. Overall, you could see an improvement in his abilities, and therefore an improvement in his occupational performance. However, I think it's very good to recognise the enablers and the barriers, as it allows us to make changes in the context so that we can improve Frankie's performance in the sessions and therefore overall his occupational performance. So an example I came up with was I could have gone and found a key to lock the door. This would have minimized the distractions that were occurring in the room, and therefore he would have been able to participate better and therefore develop his skills.